I'm here to be an all-time great.
You're now rocking with the best.
Purple and yellow, purple and yellow, purple and yellow, purple and yellow.
The Lakers repeat back-to-back titles.
Welcome to the Big Baby Jonathan Sports Podcast.
Oh, he's smoking hot.
The latest Laker news.
Another great Showtime feed.
The greatest Lakers show.
This is going to be legendary for a long time.
This is the Big Baby Jonathan Sports Podcast.
Lakers all day.
Go Lakers!
What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Big Baby Jonathan here. Welcome to the latest edition of the Big Baby Jonathan Sports Podcast. And online right now, I got Brandon Robinson from the Scoop B Radio Podcast. How's it going, man? Hope all's well during this quarantine.
Man, things have been productive. The podcast is doing well, a lot of guests, and a lot of writing and stuff getting done too, man. So everything's good. How about you? Everything good on your end?
Yes, everything's good. Just been busy with this podcasting journey, and it's a grind, man. But I love it, man. My journey is to be the best there can be in podcasting. No, I love what I do.
I love it.
Yeah. So in today's show, we're going to talk about the new playoff format, and also could this NBA pandemic could that create another lockout? So I'm going to ask you this, Brandon Robinson. What have you been hearing about the potential of Orlando being the front runners to host the NBA coming back?
Yeah, I mean that's the discussion right now. As you paid attention to my reporting Thursday and Friday into the weekend, the whole Orlando Disney World thing is an exploratory conversation that the NBA is having with Walt Disney World, where basically, if you look back to everything that was being discussed, Adam Silver, NBA commissioner, has talked about a college-like atmosphere. So, you have the top teams staying in villas on Walt Disney World's campus, and then you have Disney's Wild World of Sports, which is there. Kind of reminds you of NBA Summer League, if you will. But here's the thing that I tweeted over the weekend more specifically is while that may be something that the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference could do, there's been some talk that perhaps the Disney World could serve as the Eastern Conference hub or bubble for teams. So anybody from the Milwaukee Bucks, who are a 1 seed, all the way down to the Orlando Magic, who are an 8 seed, could go there. Orlando Magic kind of have a home court advantage, if you ask me, living in that area and just going to Disney's Wild World of Sports. But I digress. Las Vegas, the Strip had been offered to the NBA for potential use. I know Vegas is not that far from Los Angeles, and for the Clippers and the Lakers, as well as it can house other teams that are on the inside looking in. The Memphis Grizzlies is the Houston Rockets and more. So those are conversations that could be addressed. But the one thing that they're trying to figure out is is there a playoff format, or do you resume 5 or 6 more games remaining in the season? I was hearing that all the way back into March, where there could be a situation where teams who are on the outside looking in, like the Portland Trail Blazers, there's like maybe a 3.5 game difference between where the Memphis Grizzlies are and the Portland Trail Blazers are, if I'm not mistaken, in the NBA's Western Conference. So do you let those guys kind of duke it out, and is there a chance that Portland could kind of sneak in? We'll see, but the NBA is figuring out whether there'll be a regular season resume, or you go straight into the playoffs. If you go straight into the playoffs, then that's another conversation. But there's a lot of things that are still being digested, figured out, and discussed. And there are some key dates that are being looked at. The 20th or the 21st are key dates of where players could go back to their respective teams, in quarantine. But if you look at New York City right now, New York State at large, the Brooklyn Nets will start voluntary practice at Metro Tech, which is where the Nets practice in Brooklyn. And then the Knicks, will they figure out what they're going to do? You look at Los Angeles and cities like that, like, will those guys go right to just reporting to whatever designated area is if the season resumes, or will they stay in the Los Angeles area? So there are a lot of things that are being figured out, but if the season were to resume, it would likely start in July and would carry over, through August, and then you'd look at free agency, late September, early October. So there are some key dates that they're analyzing, and here we are now.
Yeah, man. I kind of want them to just play a couple regular season games to get the momentum, get the conditioning. Because what if they go into playoffs and somebody gets injured like that? And player safety is important too. But we're also having been hearing about the potential reseeding of the playoffs. It'll be like basically a college format.
Yeah, I was seeing that online. I haven't heard anything about that
Mm-hmm.
myself today. I saw it. Today's kind of a day off for me, just because I've been, running and doing so much over the last week. But I did see something on Twitter today where there would be a reseeding where you'd have the Eastern Conference and Western Conference teams playing against each other. But that's not really far-fetched if you think about it, right? Mm-hmm. So you look at Spencer Dinwiddie in March, where he was discussing, almost like a March Madness type of bracket, if you will, where you have just teams playing, elimination style, just like the NCAA tournament, where you have 64 teams. That was something that was discussed, just like Disney World was discussed. I have to give all the credit in the world to Yahoo Sports' Keith Smith, who I had on the Scooby Radio podcast, and he discussed, that notion. And Shams Charania from The Athletic and Stadium kind of furthered that dialogue and that conversation about, what would happen and what have you. So to directly answer your question, it seems interesting, but I also think, you got to figure out if you're going to have all of those teams in one place or it's going to be multiple places or more. So it seems interesting. We'll see what happens. I know that the NBA has discussed not wanting to compete with, the NFL, and, the NFL starting right on time in September. And, if things go according to plan, I've spoken to some coaches and some front office folks who have said, the NBA is looking to repeat what they did in 2011, where they started the season on Christmas Day, so if that schedule looks the way it's going to look and it's carrying over to September, I think September 25th from that graph that I tweeted the other day, September 25th would potentially be the new date for the NBA draft, with October 1st being the first day for free agency. So, that carrying over into the following season where it starts in December, it looks like that could be a thing.
Yeah, man. To be honest, I just want the season to come back in any type of fashion. Like if they do the college playoff format, like 2 versus 15, that's who. Guess who we have to play? We'd have to play Brooklyn. I don't know if KD's going to come back. I don't know what's the latest about that. Do you think KD will come back?
I'll be honest with you. I know that just with KD, when he was at Media Day and, was saying certain things, and then the Nets were kind of like, he's not coming back this season. KD's had extra time to rest. But just knowing what KD's been doing workout wise, and there's been videos about it. I know Christian Winfield over the New York Daily News has tweeted tons of videos of KD working out. I think a lot of it is dumbing the pressure down. The Nets handle, every team handles like injury reporting differently. If you followed my reporting back in December, where I talked about Kyrie Irving and his shoulder injury.
Yeah, I remember that.
Thoracic bursitis.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kenny Atkinson, who was the coach at the time, was kind of like, nah, that's not the case. And then maybe like 2 weeks later, Kyrie said, I had some bursitis in my shoulder. And I'm saying that to say you can't always go by what the Nets are saying, even though they have the best intentions. I think they're keeping it under wraps, and I think one day if you see KD in the uniform, you'll know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard anything updated, but just in my track record of dealing with that team and knowing how they handle injury reporting,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because if the KD and Kyrie Irving we had to play the Golden State, Brooklyn Nets in the playoff 15. It'll be an interesting matchup. Same with the Portland one, because Portland's right chasing the Pelicans too. Like let's say they battle out Pelicans and Blazers play, whoever wins gets the 8 seed. And if the Blazers get in, everybody's saying, "Oh, that's scary." And I know Damian Lillard could turn up, but who's gonna stop LeBron or AD in the post? But that's how I look at it.
I like a Nets Lakers matchup.
Yeah.
Only because they match up well against each other.
Mm-hmm.
They've played each other a bunch of times this season, whether it was playing against each other in China, whether it was in the regular season. I know one of the last game the Lakers played was against the Nets in the regular season, where Anthony Davis missed that open jumper. And the Nets ended up taking that game to Los Angeles and I know Jacques Vaughn, has won 2 straight as the interim coach with the Nets. So, you look at that matchup, man. It would be very interesting to watch. I know that Kyrie Irving has been in Arizona training with actually Jason Kidd's former trainer. He's been living out there working out and doing what he needs to do. So, him returning, it would be an intrigue right there as well. Because if he doesn't play, I think that the Nets still have a formidable group of guys that can still hold their own. You look at Spencer Dinwiddie, who at times was an all-star this season. Karis LeVert, who put up 50 points against the Boston Celtics. Jared Allen, DeAndre Jordan. But then on the Lakers side, you've got the best in the game in LeBron James. You have Anthony Davis, who AD has told me throughout the course of the season that he and LeBron are like peanut butter and jelly. LeBron says they're more like peanut butter and banana, not quite yet a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But that pick and roll situation, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has found his niche. In the corner pocket. Danny Green is that veteran leader after winning a championship with the Toronto Raptors last season. So, Dwight Howard. I know Dwight's been flying in and out of Atlanta with his dogs from LA to Atlanta and a few other places, kind of just enjoying his time away, but he's been in the gym working hard. So, it's going to be very interesting if that matchup does happen because I really do think that the Lakers are or rather the Nets are a competitive team. For the Lakers and vice versa. The Lakers are a competitive team with the Nets, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, now I see on the bracket right here, we got Bucks, the number 1 seed, number 16 is the Magic, 8 is Chicago, 9 is Oklahoma City, 4 Clippers, 13 Mavericks. So it's going to be interesting to see. So anybody from the 15, 14 can shock somebody and move on,
Yeah, I spoke with Kobe White and Ryan Arcidiacono of the Bulls last week, and throughout the course of the season, they've just been adamant about playoffs, make it to the playoff experience. And, I know Zach LaVine is hitting a corner in his career where, many people just looked at him as a dunker. And he's, even in the All-Star game where he was neither voted in, nor did he participate in the slam dunk contest, but, he was a competitive showing in the 3-point shootout. I think he's making that transition. When you look at Milwaukee, you know what you're getting. Giannis Antetokounmpo, hurt himself right before the corona pandemic halted play, and has had time to really rest his body and do more. You look at Orlando, Aaron Gordon and Markelle Fultz, a group of guys that are looking to win in an 8th seed. If I'm not mistaken, they won 3 straight games before the pandemic halted play. I mean, even Orlando, at times with Markelle Fultz, when they played against the Lakers on January 16th. They won by 1 point, and Fultz was handling LeBron very well.
Yeah, I remember that.
About 12 points a game and about 5.5 assists per game. But, I think Markelle Fultz will be a talent for some years, and Orlando is looking to continue to build. I think Boston is a threat in the Eastern Conference that, with Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker and more, they're here and Jason Tatum. Philadelphia has had time to heal. You look at Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. They both dealt with some injuries at points during the season. Embiid looked like a MVP candidate. Just health has not been his friend. So a lot of it's like his juice is flowing. I've enjoyed kind of sitting back and watching tape of games and recalling just conversations in the last 90 days. And, if this thing gets up and moving, I think it has more to do with just health and having adequate and proper testing and, just getting through this thing because we're talking about not just money. You're looking at health. You're looking at people's lives. And it's going to be interesting.
If you had to guess, do you think they're going to announce it to come back soon, or do you think it's going to take some time? Like, I know they got a governor's meeting on Friday the 29th or something like that. Do you think they'll announce it then?
I'm not sure. And I say that because I preface this in every interview that I do. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I am a journalist, and I can tell you what I hear. But what I'll tell you is I think that it seems that they're making those steps in that direction based off of, what they think is essential. I mean, you even look at, right before the holiday break, U.S. President Donald Trump discussing churches reopening, whether you agree or you disagree. It seems like everybody is looking to make a transition into normalcy, but you got to be so careful.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man.
Yeah, because people are just, people being stir crazy, had cabin fever, whatever you want to call it. It's so new, and it's nothing that has ever been. There's nothing to compare it to. Like I had Stefan Marbury on the Scoopy Radio podcast back in April, and
Mm-hmm.
he's in China, and he was discussing the difference between being quarantined in China versus the United States. He said, you think about it like this: in China, if there's a quarantine, everybody is home.
Mm.
You wait for those numbers to go down. It's universal versus like in the United States, what's going on in Virginia may be different than what's going on in California, which may be different in Ohio, New Jersey, Connecticut, what have you. And so these numbers are sky high, and now you're talking about $1 million athletes who are brands. You gotta handle it with the utmost care. And it's interesting because that infrastructure has infected the NBA community. You look at the Jazz, you look at Rudy Gobert, you look at Donovan Mitchell, you look at the member Christian Wood, I believe his name is, on the Detroit Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 other members of the Nets. You look at just all of those factors that are involved, and you just got to be careful that if you rush in haste, more people may get infected. And the other thing is, though, to answer your question directly, I know that Commissioner Silver did say that it would be at about a 2 to 4 week window for him to make his final decision. So, we'll see.
You're listening to the Big Baby Jonathan Sports Podcast. I got Brandon Robinson on from Scoop B Radio Podcast. We're talking about the NBA playoff bracket and potential them coming back to Orlando. Yeah, I totally agree, man. Safety is key. Just where I stay in Riverside County, restaurants starting to open up, so things are starting to open up. So I'm like slowly but surely, man, things won't get back to normal, man. It's crazy, man. But let me ask you this: since this whole stoppage of schedule, the NBA, will this have any impact on Anthony Davis's contract with the Lakers?
I haven't spoken to Anthony, so I can't give you that answer. I know that there was much made about the fact that he sold his house.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say this to you. I do believe, and I've had time to sit and think about it. I tell you, this pandemic has given me a lot of time to sit and think about everything.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I can say is about Anthony Davis is, and as it relates to the chemistry of the Lakers, I believe that the Lakers and many people who are, whether in the coaching staff or on roster or on their team,
Mm-hmm.
this is an audition for their next move. And so when you look at Dwight Howard, he's going to have another payday.
Mm-hmm.
Just like comparatively, you look at Carmelo Anthony, he played himself within the first week of his time in Portland into another payday.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, you also look at the Lakers with Jason Kidd and Phil Handy and some of those other guys. One would argue that Frank Vogel was brought in. He was hired to potentially be fired and Jason Kidd taking over. Does Jason Kidd come back in year 2?
Mm-hmm.
Does Handy come back? So to answer your question about Anthony Davis, I think it depends on how far the Lakers go. I think it's not a surefire situation that he just returns just because. Because I think that if you look at next season,
Mm-hmm.
it gets more difficult. Like, this is the season for the Lakers to win it because Golden State is not healthy. Miami is looking to make some moves, in the Eastern Conference. Giannis is a guy that has been on their radar for years.
Mm.
I think just like you asked me that question about Anthony Davis, the same could be asked about Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Mm-hmm.
I think it all depends on what happens in the playoffs. And moving forward, because the Bulls just signed their new GM in Mark Eversley, and he has tons of relationships and experiences coming out of Philadelphia, working for Nike, working with the Toronto Raptors. And so Anthony Davis, I was in the room with AD back in November in Chicago when he made comments. I am a free agent. A student from his high school, his alma mater, asked if it was a surefire. Yes, he was returning to Los Angeles. He said jokingly, I am from Chicago. I am a free agent. So I think there are teams that are going to be looking to court Davis. And, again, look at next season. The Clippers are going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
The Warriors have cap space. And the Warriors are looking to make some moves, come draft time and more. So it's not I would hope that Anthony Davis does stay, but it's not a birthright.
Yeah, man. I feel like if AD leaves, I think it's going to set us back. And if we don't win it this year, let's say we don't win it, AD leaves, I would be like, LeBron, thank you for everything. We got to trade you. You know, that's what I would do.
It's gonna be interesting, man. It's gonna be interesting because I look back at LeBron's career over the
Yeah.
last 7, 8 years. LeBron's one of my favorite players, but nobody saw the Warriors coming like they did in 2015.
Hmm.
The position that the Warriors are in, that was supposed to be Cleveland, LeBron, and Kyrie back in 2015. And, Kyrie got hurt. Kevin Love was hurt.
Yeah, I remember that year.
But, yeah, and then you go to the next season. They were down 3-1, came back and did what they needed to do. And then at that offseason, they went and they got Kevin Durant. And then they took over in 2017 and 2018. Like, this is the first year that is wide open. I remember having this conversation with Charles Barkley back in September. Like, this is the first time that anybody could run to the finals, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's, the Bucks, whether it's the Lakers, the Clippers, and what have you. This year is different. I mean, hell, Toronto has been playing well. They were in second place in the NBA's Eastern Conference. A lot of people sleep on the prowess of the Raptors this season. But, when it's all said and done, though, I think it's still going to come through Los Angeles, whether it be the Lakers or the Clippers, at least this season.
Yeah, I feel like Toronto's a sleeper because they got great talent over there. You can't just – a lot of people are like, Milwaukee's going to the finals. Boston is – I know I'm a Laker fan, but I got to keep it real. Boston's talented. Indiana's talented over there in the East. So, anybody can win since the whole – if the playoff format gets how it is, or I see that on the photo, it's going to be interesting, man.
And people are getting rest, bro.
Yeah. So,
look, Memphis is a young team. Who's to say them young guys won't come at some older guys and win something?
Well, when we played them in Memphis, John Morant was going at the Rondo, going at Caruso. When you laid up to look at him talk, he was having that Westbrook type of attitude. Okay, if you want to talk, I want you in the playoffs then. See what you made of, man.
He was cooking.
Yeah, he was. I remember that. I was like, okay. I like as a fan, I'm not worried about the Clippers. I'm just not as a fan. I'm not.
I think when you look at the Clippers, they have the team on paper.
Yeah.
Going back to last season, you give credit where credit is due.
Yep.
I think the thing that concerns me about the Clippers is not having tons of time as a unit on the floor together with the new nucleus. You start the season and Paul George is out because he's hurt. He's recovering from rotator cuff surgery. Kawhi has, they've been doing, load management there. Then, but then you still have the team from last season that still knows how to play. And, Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell and Landry Shamet and Patrick Beverley. Patrick Beverley is a heck of a talent defensively. Patrick Beverley is the reason why the Clippers won that game on Christmas Day against the Los Angeles Lakers. Just time lapses and just small mistakes that weren't figured out. But the Clippers, to me, again, what is it? Maybe they, as a unit, have only healthy altogether, have only played like maybe 5 or 10 games together, something like that.
Yeah.
I have my apprehension about that in comparison to the Lakers because I think that they're the most rare case of a first-seeded underdog if there ever is one.
Yep.
Just because they've gone through so much together as a team, Kobe passing, the coronavirus pandemic, making moves to get people, and then you add Deion Waiters to the equation, who has not played a game yet for the Lakers this season. So, man, I think that the Lakers, Troy Daniels said it best. They're the most popular. Now a member of the Nuggets. I spoke to him during the All-Star break. He said, they're one of the most popular underdogs that there is as a 1 seed. So, be interesting to see.
But I actually like the underdog because once we win, it's going to be like what they got to say now,
Oh, I agree with you. I think you look at 24-hour news coverage, you would think that the Lakers were trash, the way that they're talked about. And, many people just thought that, you put all these guys on the floor together, how are they going to produce? And it's like they've proved so many doubters wrong. I think last season was just a fluke because of they couldn't get Anthony Davis at the trading deadline. Magic Johnson stepped down, and there was tension between he and Robert Pelinka. Then you get Anthony Davis back in June of last year. You re-signed Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and then earlier this season, a lot of Lakers fans were hard on KCP. as far as just his level of accuracy and shooting. People said he stole $16 million. You look at that situation with Dwight Howard, where there was a lot of things in his personal life that were being reported last season. And, he came back from injury and been consistent. Then you look at Danny Green. He was supposed to be that veteran leader. They didn't get Kawhi Leonard, and Danny Green sat and waited until the Lakers figured that part out. They brought in Jared Dudley. There's just a lot of things that could have. Listen, Phil Handy said this on the Scoopy Radio podcast a couple of weeks ago. In order to win a championship, you got to have a little bit of luck too. You could play your best basketball, but you got to get some breaks too.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that the Lakers have it. I like the signing of Morris as well. I think
Me too.
Really underrated because it allows them to move a little more fluidly. The Lakers, their biggest criticism by many people was that they were too top heavy. And you saw that Anthony Davis had range. He told me, at the beginning of the season that the defensive player of the year was his goal. And, I think he averages between 2 to 3 blocks per game. He fills up the stat sheet. So, there's a lot to be considered and a lot to be desired with the Lakers. I think that this time off gives guys like LeBron James time to rest his body because he's gone to so many NBA finals. He's had one major injury from last season. And I want to see the Lakers win it.
Yeah, me too, man. Because once the Lakers win, I'm gonna be excited. I'm gonna have hella people on my show, including you. If the Lakers win, man, you'll come on and celebrate with me. I'm gonna probably be going live on Instagram too. But just want to thank you, Brandon Robinson, for coming on. So go ahead and give out your social media so they can follow you, man.
Well, first of all, make sure you all subscribe to the Scoop B Radio podcast, which is available on all streaming platforms. 2.1 million streams last year. We just had Tiki Barber on the other day. We've had everybody from Shaq to Charles Barkley to a myriad of other people. But also follow me on Twitter at ScoopB, Instagram and Snapchat at Scoop_B, and Facebook.com/ScoopB. All of those social media channels. And hey, Big Baby, as always, thanks for having me, man.
All right, no worries, man. Have a great night, and we'll talk soon, man.
My man.